Welcome to the Growing Your Financial Business the Woman's Way podcast. I'm Robin Crane, and I was a financial advisor for over a decade. But before that, I was a singer-songwriter. And now, even as a mom of three with a teenager, toddler, and a baby, I run a seven-figure business helping women in financial services grow their businesses and make a bigger impact. In this podcast, I'll bring you financial advisors, industry influencers, and highly successful entrepreneurs to give you innovative strategies designed for women. So get ready to learn how to get in front of the right people, get more ideal clients, and be able to grow your ideal business so you can live your ideal life. Welcome to Growing Your Financial Business the Woman's Way. It's Robin Crane here with Faith and Hope Zimmerman of Zimmerman Architects. And you might be wondering, why are these two here to talk to financial advisors about growing their business? Well, we will tell you, because we're here to talk about creating the best client experience. Now, these two, tell you a little about them. They have a very successful practice in what is it called again? Denville? Yes.
Denville. Yep.
Denville, New Jersey. Denville, New Jersey. And we met, must have been 6 or 7 years ago. And they've been in my world for the last, I think, 6 years and have been incredible working with a bunch of financial advisors in our community. And they're always so amazing at extracting the value. They're so great about always being positive. And they're so incredible at really implementing systems and processes and putting those in place to make their lives easier and also to create the best experience for their clients. So tell the listeners a little bit about you two. They're twins. You can't all see them necessarily if you're listening to the podcast, but they're twinsies. They're adorable. They're fun. They finish each other's sentences and possibly sandwiches as well. Tell them a little about yourselves and your business, and then we'll go from there.
Okay, so we built our business from the ground up. We didn't inherit it from our dad or anything like that. And we've been in practice for 30 years. And we do typically single family residential work, which means we work for the homeowner to help them have the best life they can.
Cool. So tell them a little bit how you built your business, because I know when we met, it was kind of a crazy time where it almost was counterintuitive for you to start working with me, because I think it was 24 years in business. Yeah. And you were great at architecture, great at helping clients. I mean, really good at what I would call the craft, like you're excellent at what you do. But what you weren't great at was the business. And you came to me when you had a lot of debt, you were struggling, and then you invested more money. So tell them that story and where you were, because it seems really crazy that you would invest in your business at a time like that. And why did you even do that?
So part of the reason I think that we were in such bad financial shape as business owners is that is pretty much how the architecture industry is. And
especially for small businesses, yes. As opposed, like the bigger firms tend to be profitable. The mom and pop shops tend to, it's like the badge of honor, you're the poor starving artist kind of a thing.
Yeah. And in the architecture business, you are required to intern with an architect. So that's where you're learning how a practice is run, how the business is run. And you're learning basically from somebody who's terrible at it.
Who's a poor starving artist.
And so you just by observing, you learn all of these terrible skills, including part of the process for the homeowner.
Right.
And so as new architects start out their firm, they just keep implementing the same thing that these other old guys did for ever how many years, and never really sit back and evaluate what's going good, what's not going good. It's just how it is. And so
you get your spouse to support you.
Yeah. A lot of architects, male or female, couldn't do it if they didn't have a spouse that had a good job.
Or they have a teaching job in architecture.
Yes.
Wow. Let me pause on that, because I know the listeners are financial advisors, insurance professionals growing their business. And I think there are a lot of similarities. For sure, the difference is, I think we don't look at financial advisors and expect them to be starving artists. I was a singer-songwriter before, as you know, and being a starving musician or a struggling musician, like, it's totally cool. You don't make money. Become a financial advisor, not so cool anymore. So it's like there's a different view and perspective. And I think so many women who are in the industry feel like a fraud because everyone expects that they should just go into business and have money. Like, if you go into becoming a financial advisor with a lot of money, it's not because you were a financial advisor, obviously, when you're just starting. So how are you supposed to be a financial advisor wealthy when you're just starting the business, unless you had a prior a spouse that's paying for the bills, let's say, who's made a lot of money, or you've had a prior job that and you did a good job saving. But so many of these women feel like a fraud or feel like they have the imposter syndrome because it's assumed that they would be successful and wealthy, when it doesn't really make sense. It makes more sense it would be like architects starting out, and that they're starving artists, because there's definitely an artistry in financial advising as well.
And also in this country, so much of whether you're successful is judged by how much money you have, as opposed to
how good you are,
what you do, how well you do your craft. It's like, okay, if you're not making your mortgage payments, you must not be very good at what you do, as opposed to looking at all of these awesome projects that we've done that have like totally changed people's lives. And even for us, we had imposter syndrome because after 24 years of business,
our clients had all these awesome houses that we were helping them to make. And they'd be like, well, and it's like, well, they're like, oh, can you imagine? My kids have to play in this, 10,000 square foot playroom. Can you imagine playing in something so small? It's like, my kid's got a bedroom that's 7 by 7, and that's their playroom too.
And 3 of them share it,
Right? Oh my God.
So it's kind of the imposter syndrome in a different way, but where it's like, don't come look at my house, look at my clients' houses.
Yeah, that makes sense, because you're good at the craft, and that's very similar with financial advisors. They're great at what they do. They're great at providing value to their clients, but growing a business is a totally different animal. And then what you said, I think, is so similar about you said, Hope, you said, implement the same things. Like, we were taught to implement these terrible learn these terrible business skills from these architects as we were interning. And then we were implementing the same thing the older guys did, because that's just how it is. Like, that is exactly the same with the financial industry.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Older guys, the old boys club, and showing you how to do it. And the old strategies, like just go networking and just talk to everybody and pound the pavement. It's like, it doesn't necessarily work that well for women, and it definitely doesn't work that well today because of post-COVID, if we can even say post at this stage, but in the middle or in the midst of all this craziness with shifting the way we do business. Okay,
and so just technology and all of that. It's not necessarily even COVID, but just the world has changed. It's different.
Yeah. And it's the same. I always talk about the archaic strategies being taught in the financial industry. Right. And it's very similar in many businesses, including architecture. Okay, great. That's super awesome. I love this background information. Keep going. I had to cut you off because I thought that was so similar. But so then there you were, you intern, then you start a business, and then 24 years in, you feel like imposters. You feel like you're, kind of similar. You're feeling like a fraud. You're not killing it in business. So that means you're not killing it financially. So where were you at that point when we met? Do you remember?
We were at the point of we're just getting into debt. Like, we owed our landlord rent, 4 or 5 months rent. Right. It's like, okay, we were holding paychecks.
Do we keep going and work as Walmart greeters to make ends meet? Or do we go work for somebody else? Do we do something different?
This is after 24 years of having our own business and
really liking what we were doing,
and working with each other, and not wanting to go work for somebody else. But it's like, okay, if we're going into debt by being in business for ourselves, it's like something has to change. And like, we were putting in a lot of hours. So it's not like we had time to get a second job that would pay for us to be architects,
although we did research some of that, it's like, and Hope was even look at how much the beggars on the street in New York City make. Literally, they make a ton of money.
I'm going to take
they make.
They can make, I've read some articles, they can make $50,000 in a year being a beggar.
Oh my gosh.
If they know how to do it right.
And it's like, okay, I could go be a beggar. I'll just like,
if I had a little bit of time,
put my head down if I see anyone.
take the train to New York, beg for a little bit. It's just a part-time beggar. You could be a part-time beggar just to pay the rent.
Yeah, right. That was
that's crazy.
Yeah.
That's crazy. So, and you said work for someone else. I remember thinking when I was in the first couple of years as a financial advisor, I was thinking like, wow, what if I just went to work for a bank and they paid me like a salary of 80, like I could probably get $80,000 a year at a bank, and I was struggling. I didn't have much profit. At one point I was making $2,000 a month, but that was not like in pocket even, living in the Bay Area, Silicon Valley, which did not pay the rent. So I was going further in debt. And I was thinking that like, what if I just go get a job and work at a bank? Like now that I've been an advisor for a year or two, like that seems like plush, So why didn't you do that? What kept you from that?
Each other.
Yeah.
Right. They're smiling and hugging here.
Yeah.
Each other.
I think that probably is a big part of it. It is we most likely would not have been able to work together anymore. Part of it was we had really built our lives and our schedules and our kids and everything around having our own business. And shared daycare and all of that kind of stuff. And we would not have had that kind of flexibility, especially back then. Like now, it was before there was such a thing as flex time. 30 years ago, there wasn't flex time, And even 6 years ago, it wasn't nearly as acceptable as it is now. It's like when our kids were little, we didn't tell any of our clients that, okay, I'm not working today because I'm home watching 5 kids. Because that's like, then we wouldn't have been taken seriously. It's like, oh, you're really mothers, but you're playing in architecture. It's like, no, we're working our asses off. Oops, can I say that?
Yeah, it's our podcast. Say it at this. Woo!
That and we're doing this, a lot of it, so that we can do it the way we want to do it. And then the other thing too was, and I think was just as big a part of it, is we really liked being able to do the projects that we wanted to do and to design them the way we wanted them to be and not be figuring out somebody else's design and doing somebody else's construction drawings. Because we had already worked at other architects' offices and sometimes, okay, here's this addition, figure out how to make it work. Mm-hmm. And it's like, oh, my designs are better than what his were. Let me keep doing my own.
It was like, well, it's not even a good design and it didn't take into account so many things. And you obviously didn't ask the client questions and you're just doing what you think they should do. And it's like,
which gets into like the client experience, which I want to get more into. Right. But I want to go back to one part. So one thing you said as far as why you stayed, because I think for me, I definitely considered obviously, leaving and going to finding a job or leaving the industry. And I think that's something every business owner considers, like, should I get a job? And it's our worst nightmare. But at the same time, it's like, well, maybe that will solve all my problems. But then you take away all those things you're talking about. You take away flexibility. You take away time with the kids. You take away your creative license. You take away
pride of what you created.
Yes.
Pride of what you created and maybe giving the clients the best experience, because I think that happens sometimes with banks and these places that are, more product driven. It's like, I want to make sure the client has the best results and give them the best experience. And I don't want to push products or push things onto them. So one reason you stayed was because you had each other and that support and you wanted those things. And then I know what made you invest, because you were at a point, you said you weren't paying, you were holding paychecks because you didn't have enough in the bank to pay yourself. You were going in debt. You weren't paying your rent. How the heck did you decide to work with me? And it doesn't matter that it's me, but just to decide to invest in your business at that stage. What were you thinking to say, I'm going to invest more to try to get this result?
Well, we were literally to the point where we have to do something. We cannot continue the way we
status
are right
quo
now.
Would not work.
It's like it's just not an option. We have to do something. And you happen to come along at the right time. Thank you. And it's like,
and said the right things. It's like, all right, well, let's just give it a try.
It's like, we're already this far in debt. What's another few grand? I was thinking about this because I have, some women in my Fast Path to Clients program. And, you guys, obviously, that we have our high-end program called FEM. And I was watching this amazing negotiator. His name is Chris Voss. You guys have heard me talk about him, but those of you who don't know Chris Voss, you should check him out. It's incredible. But one of the things he said when he was talking about negotiation is he said something about like, would you rather have whatever the number was, let's say $5,000 now, or he actually was talking about buying a business. So he said something like, would you rather have, it was a bigger number, but let's just say, $100,000 now or $1 million in 2 years. It's like, oh, if you put it that way, I'd rather have $1 million in 2 years, because what he was talking about is that, some of these companies that they're doing well, but they could, like, say, sell their business for, a couple hundred, like say 100,000 or 200,000 or something. I'm making up numbers, or you could grow it in 2 years and sell it for $1 million. And I think it's not necessarily always the selling part, but very similar for you. It's like, I don't know what my fee was at the time, but you had to invest a few $1,000s or $5,000 or whatever. And then to say, hey, one of the things I know you really wanted was to make $100,000. And it was like your pipe dream to both take home each $100,000, like in some salary, or paying yourselves $100,000. And you had to sacrifice all these things. You didn't have the money, you weren't, and you had to say, okay, I'd rather give up X amount, $5,000, let's say now, to then, obviously you've invested a lot more since, but to then have a business that gives me $100,000 a year. And I know you've had, ups and downs throughout, but I know you had that experience. So that's a huge leap of faith to say, like, I'm willing to risk something now. Is there anything specific you can remember? I mean, you kind of said do or die, like this was it, but is there anything else like that made you decide to take that risk? And
well, we also, when we worked with you at the beginning, we also did, like, there was a little, a small piece that we did that was sort of a, dip your toe kind of a thing.
Yeah.
And like, just, we immediately took action on things that you suggested. And like that week brought in an extra $2,000. Like, and so it, and so it's like, all right, overall, that's not that much. But back then it was like, oh my gosh. And it was like, and it was in a way that, wow, we can do this over and over with every single new client.
Right.
That's awesome. And that's also because you're so coachable and you take action immediately. Let me direct you into this so we make sure to get to because there's so many things we can talk about for hours, into the client experience. So a lot of what you learned was a system and a process to get clients from, when they first are a prospect, and then through the whole, we call it stages of sale, but basically going from step to step to step to then become a client. So tell them how having that system has not only helped you make more money, but also helped, like, how is that giving the client a better experience?
Go ahead. Well, part of it is like what we don't do that we used to do that almost every architect does is meet with them and mail them a proposal. And they are not ready to do the whole project. Like, it's just like, okay, they said they want this here, this is to do that. And now we work with them one little step at a time and help them more think about and develop and question why they want to do it. What is it that they're actually trying to get out of it? It's like, okay, I want to add this 1,000 square foot addition. And it's like, okay, why do you want to add that? What do you think? How do you think this is going to change your life? What's not working for you with how your house is now?
And sometimes we tell them, well, you just have to get a divorce and everything will be better.
Or a dumpster.
I love that.
And there is people that we have talked out of doing projects because what they were describing and what they were describing as their issues it wasn't the solution for it. So either you need to rethink the project, you need to sell, and because you're not going to get that house on this location for whatever reason, and really help guide them in what it is that they want, as opposed to them just saying, this is what we need, but in a way where they're still feeling heard and not like, oh, here's another one of these architects that's just telling me what I need. And so we don't tell them what we need. We show them what their options are for how they can achieve what their goals are.
And one of the biggest things that our clients just say to us all the time is like, wow, you really listened. Like they feel really heard, which is huge. And I'm sure in your industry, it would be as well, because I can imagine me, if my financial advisor wasn't listening to me, I'd be like, damn, I need a different financial advisor. But that is huge. But so part of what like our system does is it breaks, especially at the very beginning, breaks it down into very, very small bite-sized pieces. So they don't have to commit to something before they're ready to commit to it. Like we do a design consultation, and it's like, then when they do that, it's like, wow, you actually really have some really good ideas. I never even considered that I might want to do this, or I might look at this instead. And then we do a feasibility study, and they're like, oh, nobody ever talked to me about doing a feasibility study before. It's like, well, you don't want to spend all this money on an architect if you don't even know if you're going to be able to build the project. You don't know if it's going to cost you $100,000 or $1 million. You know, a lot of people have no clue where within that range it's going to be. They just know they want to do it, and they don't know if they can do it zoning wise and all of this. So for them to be able to do it just a little tiny piece at a time makes them more ready and certain that what they're looking at doing actually is the best thing for them to do.
Yeah, and we've talked about this, but for the listeners, it's basically micro commitments. It's
yes.
Two things that I think are really important. One are these micro commitments, so small commitments. But the reason that micro commitments work, it's not because we're trying to manipulate them in any way. It's because psychologically they're not ready for the next step. And,
absolutely.
And so often, whether it's architects or financial advisors, you're skipping steps and they feel pushed when you're not trying to push them, or they feel like you're trying to sell them or pitch them when it's not your intention. But when you're at a place beyond where they are psychologically, if you're pitching them a product or you're talking about rolling over 401k when they don't even feel like you get them, or you've been listening, or they don't feel heard, they start to back off, literally and figuratively, where they're like backing up in their seat. And so what we've done with you, which is the same process that we've used, I know we talk about this, you guys are in my book, Make More Money, Help More People. I think, what is it? Chapter 7? I think it's chapter 7.
I think
we talk about the stages of the sale, and you have different names for it, but it's exactly the same. It's basically like, okay, well, first we start with wherever you meet them, we're driving them to the equivalent of a 10-minute call. And sometimes I'm doing interviews as an exchange of that. But during this 10-minute call, it could be 15 minutes, it could be 10 minutes, it could be 20, but we usually try to keep it succinct. It's just trying to figure out, like, they're just curious enough to be there. And then we're like, okay, we need to know, in order to drive them to the next micro commitment, do they want help? And so the only thing we're trying to figure out in that 10-minute call is, well, what do they want? What's holding them back? And if we figure that out, there's a gap, and then we can drive them to what we call a discovery call. And what do you call it? Is that your, or do you have something a little bit different?
That would be basically our in-office meeting.
In-office meeting.
No
okay.
charge.
So this is the cool thing, as you're listening to this, you might say, okay, I don't call it a discovery call. I call it an in-office meeting. And maybe you call it just a meeting. Maybe you call it your first meeting. Everybody has a different name for it. But that discovery they're indicating, coming to that meeting, that they want help. They want you to solve a problem, or they want something that you got. And then from there, we're driving them to what we call a strategy session. The only way they get to go to the strategy session is if they're indicating they want your help. And so you have a different name for it, but it's like all these stages, there's psychologically something that's happening. And what happens in those different stages is more or less the same. You're just trying to get deeper and deeper and clearer about what do they want that they don't already have, and what's holding them back from getting there. And as you go up these stages of the sale, or up the ladder, if you will, you're getting clearer and clearer and closer to figuring out, is this a fit? And as you move them through those micro commitments, then it's like, okay, they're indicating now, after they've indicated they're curious, then they indicate they want help. Then they indicate they want your help. Then they indicate they want your help long-term. That's when they sign on the dotted line, that final, like, yeah, let's do the project. Or in the financial advisor's case, let's roll over that 401k. Let's do life insurance, manage my money. So it's all the same, but like, so many people are skipping those steps or getting derailed. And I know you mentioned this before we started recording. the client tries to derail you and skip a step, and you guys are so good about holding your ground so that they get the best experience. So talk a tiny bit about that, and then we'll tell them how they can find you and what else they can get.
So a lot of times when somebody calls, they'll say, well, can't you just come out to my house? And it's like, no, we, it's like, all right, we do, this is a no charge, no strings attached meeting that you come to the office and blah, 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 blah. And because we found if they're not willing to invest, like it's they're only investing their time. They're not investing their money yet. And very often, if they're not willing to invest their time to do that, then they're not taking it seriously enough and not committed enough to that. It's like, well, why should I waste my time if you're not willing to spend your time? It's your project. And
also, and this happens a lot with financial advisors going to their house. I call them drive-bys. Like I used to do so many of those when I first started as a financial advisor, where I was living in the Bay Area, driving all over in traffic. I mean, sometimes take me 2 hours to get to someone's house, and I'd get there, I'd knock on their door, they wouldn't be home.
Oh, yes.
Like, are you kidding me?
Right.
And like, where's my credibility when I go to someone's house, and then if they're there or if they're not there, like that's showing I'm desperate for business. Right. So showing like my credibility is like the gum at the bottom of their shoe. Like I don't
absolutely.
You are like, no,
we go right. So
we do it. Yeah,
before we'll go out there, we have a signed contract and payment for us to go out there. It's not like, okay, you give me the payment, and when I get there, it's like, no, because then if you flake out and aren't home,
I just
whatever, I got paid.
I also heard Chris Voss say this, since I'm on the Chris Voss bandwagon here, but he said that he helped a real estate agent lower her appointments by 80%, but she made more money. Mm-hmm. And so much of it was filtering like this, where she had a process, and he taught her, to use specific questions and specific system and process to make them commit in certain ways. And if they weren't willing to commit, just like you said, Faith, if they don't commit to that, then you're going to spend 3 months, 6 months chasing them or 10 hours chasing them to try to get them to be your client. We don't need that. Not only does it lower your credibility, but we don't have the time for that. Like, let's get the people who are committed, and you stick to your process. And like you said, when you stick to your process, it gives them a better experience, because then they'll get what they want. If they're not committed, they're never getting what they want.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay. Well, give them like one last piece of advice on how to use a succinct process and a proven process to help give the client, the prospect and the client, the best experience. Any other story or anything to add around that?
I think one of the things is, if somebody calls and they're saying something other than where you would expect them to come into your pipeline, that you really need to figure out where within your system they are and get them to that point. And it's like, you might still be pushing them back further into their, like down lower in your pipeline than they think they need to be. But wherever you really think they need to be, stick to your guns in get them there. And very often you will find that they're actually very willing to do that. They are not necessarily educated enough about your system to know that that's what they need. And once you explain to them why this makes sense, they're like, awesome, perfect, we'll do it that way.
Yeah, it's not that they're necessarily
where you thought you were going to get a lot of pushback, and a lot of times you don't.
Yeah. Yes. Where they thought they knew, and once you explain something, they're like, oh, okay, that makes sense. And then after they have the meeting, they're like, oh, thank you so much. We really appreciated that. This was so great. I totally understand why you do this. And, and then they're totally on board to follow the system completely.
And they feel like they're not being pushed. The cool thing is if someone tries to buy from you, they're not necessarily buying, but it seems like it. Like, oh, come to my house, I'm ready for this. Like, and they're pushing you in your system, and you're like, no, I'm sorry, you cannot buy from me yet. Like, you don't have the privilege. You don't get to buy from me yet. We have to see if we're a fit. It immediately shifts the relationship, where you have more, like I said, credibility, and where you're not desperate to get them as clients, and they don't feel pushed, and they're like, oh, they're not trying to just get me to give them money. They really have a system to make sure I get the best experience. I get the best transformation. I really get what I want. And you're not taking the control from them. It's just that you're guiding them with this intention to serve, where they feel like you're really taking care of them instead of trying to just take their money and sell them, which is why it works so well, and why they then, want to follow your system. Not to mention, people want to be guided. They actually want to just
they do.
Right? They want to be guided. And I always tell my clients, like, you need to guide them when they start to ask you and interrogate you and ask these questions. You need to fire back questions to them, because you need to drive the conversation, because they don't want to buy the box. I always say, stop selling the box. The box is the architecture work, the drawings or whatever. The box is the financial plan, or the box is the money management. Like, they don't actually want the box.
They want the transformation.
They want the transformation. They want what the box is going to give them. Like, open up the box. It's like a really nice surprise in there. It's like, it's an amazing result. And when you let them then drive you and just try to buy that thing, then they backpedal. And then they're like, wait, now I start to have this buyer's remorse. Or I start to feel like maybe I don't want this. It was too easy, and they didn't even listen. They didn't understand. And they don't know that consciously.
And I think it's also you're the professional. Why didn't you tell me?
Yeah.
And I think that applies both for us and for the financial advisors, where somebody, it's like, okay, they come to me and they tell me they want this and this and this, but it's not the best way to do it. It's not going to get them the best end result. The thing's going to be ugly. It's going to be whatever. And then when it's all done, they'd be like, well, why didn't you tell me it was going to be ugly? Why didn't you guide me? Why didn't you tell me that this is what I needed to do? You're the professional. You should have known.
It's like financial advisors saying, hey,
totally.
Your plan of you thinking you need $1 million at 65 ain't going to cover it. Like, you think everyone has a magic number. I need $1 million. Okay. If you're 50 and you're 75, you all need $1 million. Something doesn't add up. Nobody has the same lifestyle. Nobody wants the exact same things. And definitely if you're 50 versus 75, I think you need a little bit of a different strategy, right? And everybody's like, I need $1 million or $5 million, whatever that is. But you got to be real with them, and they will respect that you are telling them the truth and saying, hey, based on your goals and based on what you're telling me, that $1 million is going to last you 5 years. I think, would you like to have more than a 5-year retirement? They're like, yeah. I say, okay, I think we need a better plan. Exactly. Yeah. Okay. Hope, I think you were dying to say something there. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just thinking that a lot of times when people come in and they're asking questions and like kind of trying to guide it, it's just, and they're asking these questions because they don't know what questions they should be asking. And it's just like, these are the questions that they've heard they should ask.
Right.
And it's not, and so then that's where we have to guide them into what questions really need to be answered, as opposed to these other ones that those are important, but they're not important for like another couple months. Like that's not where you're at right now. Those aren't the important questions yet.
But the other thing with that is you have to know how to do it respectfully, not just poo-poo their questions and concerns. And it's like, you don't even need that now. It's like, okay, sometimes it's like, all right, we'll get to that. We'll touch on it, whatever. But what you really need first is this.
Yeah.
Yes, that's called slide of the mouth. Good job. Yes. Good job.
But you because we do get people come and say, I talked to these other architects and they were so arrogant and they wouldn't even answer my questions and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, okay, yeah, we will answer them, but maybe differently than you're asking.
Yeah, that's a great question. Acknowledge it. And yes, that's very important. And you go fire back another question. Well, what is it that you really want? Because you can't answer that question if you don't know what they want or what their concerns are. Okay, amazing. So if anyone's looking for architects, are you just helping people in Denville? Do you guys do anything outside of that area? And what's the best way to find you if they want to find you?
So we are licensed in New Jersey, New York, Pennsylvania, and Utah. And probably the best way to find us is to look up our website, which is www.zimarch.com. So Zimarch for Zimmerman Architects.
Okay, zimarch.com. You can check them out. You can book an appointment there. I know because I helped them make the video that's on their website. If you just want to see what these two look like and how cute they are together, it's adorable. Go to their website anyway, and you can book a call. with them, and they'll walk you through their process to give you the best experience, best client experience that you could possibly have. And if you know anyone that needs architecture work and in those states, please let them know. They're the best. So amazing. When we decided to come on this podcast, I was like, we can talk about so many things. We could talk about having a positive attitude. We can talk about how, extracting the value. We can talk about investing yourself consistently in your business to grow it. We can talk about, and they're like, oh, systems and processes and having the best client experience, creating the best client experience. We're like, let's go with that. But there's so many things because these two are incredibly positive. They're always extracting the value. They're coachable. They're putting things into action. They're so appreciative. I mean, just having their energy is just amazing. So thank you for coming on the podcast.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
And I love the perspective of non-financial advisors who are in a community, like for the last 5-6 years, in a community of financial advisors and insurance professionals to really bring a different perspective. And thank you all for listening. And we'll hopefully see you at the next podcast or the next tag challenge. But look at our site, check it out, make sure you get involved so you can be part of this amazing community. We'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.
Are you getting all the quality prospects on your calendar that you'd like? If not, join us in the Appointment Generator Challenge. Go to femalefinancialadvisors.com and register for free. We guarantee you'll get 5 quality appointments in 5 days if you follow this system, and you can do it from online. You don't even have to pick up the phone. Whether you're just starting, whether you've been in the industry 3 to 5 years, or even 30 years, this challenge will be perfect for you. Check it out, femalefinancialadvisors.com, and register for absolutely free. Can't wait to see you there.